All right, there we go. Let's get our Facebook friends up in here before it's officially time to take off and talk a little bit of Broncos ball. We got 2 check marks. That was quick. Welcome in, everybody. It is Monday morning, I think. God, August 29th at 7:34 Mountain Time, 6:34 a.m. where I'm at. Was it 9:34 where Scott is? Either way, time for Broncos for breakfast. I am Nick Kendall, and joined by, as always, for these morning shows, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a Monday morning after a great weekend of football, sports in
Hmm.
general. So especially for you
Yeah.
with the Braves choking away a couple of games to the Cardinals
Yes.
that they had them beat. You probably enjoyed that. But otherwise, yeah, ready to get into this. I know it's a nerve-wracking time for players and personnel and administrative staff right now with the cut down days coming down from 80 to 53
100%.
tomorrow. But I like to think that when you're able to stash 16 guys on the practice squad, it's not 27 guys getting, losing their jobs and not being able to be Broncos anymore. Really, it's closer to 10, which isn't quite as bad, but still not a happy time for a lot of folks, at Dove Valley right now.
Yeah. Nope. I feel bad. This is going to be me being a bottom line kind of person. I feel bad, obviously, for the guys getting cut, but the fact that we're getting down to 53 means we're so close, man. We're so close to real football. I can almost taste it. So I feel bad for those guys, obviously, but it also makes me somewhat excited and curious because then once you have the 53-man roster, it's not the who makes the roster anymore. It's where do all the pieces fit together of this 53-piece puzzle. So really excited to see how it all comes together. And then the practice squad as well. So a lot of things are going to be happening here pretty quickly here in not just Broncos country, but across the NFL landscape. Kevin Gray coming in saying, morning Broncos country, Nick and Scott Saturday game made me feel better about the D. They still have some work. Let's ride. Yeah, I thought the run defense specifically looked better. However, if there's any game that is probably the least telling as far as what a team is going to be this season or in the regular season, it's the final preseason game. It used to be that you would see almost nobody out there. I feel like and coaches are still trying to figure out how to work in the 3 preseason games. It doesn't really feel like there's when there was 4, there was almost like an agreed upon who's playing what amount, and now it's kind of just like I don't know, we're playing everybody or we're playing nobody. And it probably will change again because they're going to whittle down to 2 preseason games at some point, I would imagine. But how did you feel about the defense overall, and how much should we, I guess, weigh this performance against the Vikings?
If anything, you had to appreciate the effort a lot more.
Yeah.
There was a concerted effort to get after it. My concern at the beginning was not necessarily alleviated. McTelvin had a good game on paper, but he still isn't strong enough at the point of the attack to play the run. He's basically the defensive version of Albert Okwuegbunam. I can use him in pass situations because when he was good was when he was attacking the offensive backfield in pass rush, but he was not good at the point of attack. Well, that's okay. That I can deal with that. With his size and strength, I'm disappointed. Again, just switch the names, and I can say these exact same things that we've been saying about Albert Okwuegbunam. With his size and agility and all of these things, he should be better than he is against the run. But if he's going to be a plus against the pass, I can find a spot for this guy. If he's going to be a finesse player and I can put him in an end and he's going to get in the offensive backfield on 3rd and long, I can find a spot for a guy like that on a 3-4. You bet your butt I can.
Yeah.
I just wish he was a little bit more stout against the run. But again, if he's going to be serviceable in the rotation, okay, well, now I know when I need to rotate. I need to rotate him in. Because the one thing I noticed, Nick, that 4th down where they thought they stopped him but didn't, Uzarike stood up in a big way against the run. That was a definite plus. But you know who wasn't on the field? McTelvin Agim. He wasn't on the field. I don't think that was by coincidence. So some very good very good things in there. I wasn't ready to just ship him out like I was last week. That's for sure.
Yeah, and he disruptive player. I think Nathaniel Hackett described him as being everywhere on the field, which you want that's a great compliment for a defensive lineman. Just for me in general, this Broncos team, I feel like they don't have enough power players on that defensive line.
Right.
Not enough bulls. It's just a bunch of, gazelles interior defensive line, which is good when you're playing, Big 12, Pac-12 esque offenses in the AFC West. But again, I said it over on the Falcons channel just a bit ago. You got to eat your veggies to get to dessert, and the veggies being holding up against the run on the first and second down to get those plus opportunities on third down. But yeah, McTelvin Najim, great game. Maybe one of the best players on the field in this game.
So I need serviceable out of my second team defensive line, right?
Yeah.
So if I feel that Mike Purcell, some combination of Purcell and DJ Jones and Deshaun Williams, there's four. And
Draymond,
and
maybe.
Draymond Jones. There's four though.
Yeah.
There's four I feel pretty good about. Now, I know how to say his name and I'm tripping on it. Awuzarike looked good enough for sure,
Yep.
especially as a 4th round pick rookie. He took some strides. Now, Ajim took some strides as well. Henningsen does some good things too. Now I'm starting to feel a little bit better about that depth and where I can place them out, because I don't feel terrible about having Awuzarike in the middle of a defensive line. That's where he should be. He should be a tackle. If you want to go 2 down with 2 edge guys,
Yeah.
or you need a big package, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
He can, and he was holding his own at the point of attack. I can put him in the middle of a 3-4 and flank him with Ajim, and whoever you want to, after that. Or, if I want to try and get real big, and I'm running those guys across the middle, you got Purcell and I got Awuzarike also. So again, I feel better. If nothing else, I feel better about the effort, because we know Ajim's got the talent. And as harsh as we were on him, he had some very good flash plays, but he wasn't eating his veggies in the middle of that defense.
No.
That's okay. You need him. You need that rotation. He's not going to be a starter the way he's playing now, but he can certainly still be an impact player, that's a very good thing.
Yeah. And just sticking on the defensive line here real quick. But first, Mark Schrader coming in. Mark, I appreciate the kind words. Mark, before I left for my trip, he said, Mark said to me, I live vicariously through your pictures, Nick. I'm like, I'm off to a trip right now. I'm like at the trailhead or coming off the trailhead, driving to the other spot. And he says, be safe. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that, because it can be a little bit hairy out there sometimes. It was cold, but it was a good time. But yes, thank you so much, Mark. Continue on the defensive line discussion here. It's coming down to a math issue for me. If Ajim is on the team, somebody might be out. And we've been talking about, the 4 guys that feel pretty safe, maybe even 5, considering Awuzarike is a 4th round pick. They probably want to protect him. Does this Ajim stand out here, especially with his pass rush ability and the batting balls ability, make it more of a question with Matt Henningsen coming? I mean, 6th round pick. Maybe you can sneak him on the practice squad, or are you taking away elsewhere on the roster to keep both those guys on here?
Well, right now on the depth chart, you've got 8 guys listed for 3 spots. I think you're going to want to have 7. You might have to try and sneak somebody onto the practice squad, but having 7 defensive linemen isn't too many by any stretch of the imagination. I think Jonathan Harris is in trouble. I haven't seen enough out of him that he would be a roster spot. So you got to cut there, and you've got 7. I feel like I could find 7 on a 53, Nick. And and then, maybe do you sneak them down? McTelvin Ajim will make, if you were to waive him, if you were not to keep him, that's going to make headlines. Former 2nd round pick. I'm writing it right now. The former 2nd round pick, 3rd round pick, former 3rd round pick cut. Same thing in Atlanta. We talked about Marlon Davis, and very similar career path to Melvin Ajim. Former 2nd round pick cut. Those are headlines. Those get people's attention. Henningsen not making the 53. Does that get anybody's attention?
I mean, does for me, because Big Ten country. But
right, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but do you want to risk it? Do you want to risk it?
Yeah, keeping 7 guys is tough.
Consistent enough.
Yeah,
that you want to risk losing Henningsen.
Yeah, and everyone drinks
7. I'm telling you, I find 7.
The big question for me on 7. Sorry. The big question for me on 7, and everyone take a drink, because this circles back to Nick on this one. He says, what about this? Special teams. 7 defensive linemen. Those guys aren't being gunners or, running on the special teams unit very often. So then you're probably taking away a wide receiver, a cornerback, a linebacker, a tight end, who it is a special teams contributor. So that's the one for me where it's like, I think you maybe try to sneak Henningsen on the defensive on the practice squad if that's the way it goes here. But we'll see. And I come back to a point that I've made 100 times. I would just feel so much better about this offensive lineman, the defensive line, if you just had one more plus player on that unit. Knock everybody down one, have DJ Jones, Draymond Jones, and then one more guy. Even like an
Right.
Ashawn Robinson bull type who can play inside and outside. Like if Awuzurike looked like already a solid starter, he'd be the guy that the type, the style, the type that I think this defensive line needs to round out. But right now, Mike Purcell, question mark, didn't look that well last year. We haven't seen him in preseason. Looked good in the joint practice YouTube video that the Cowboys put out that I saw, but how much am I putting on that? Deshaun Williams, I think he's and Deshaun Williams is like who you want McTelvin Agim to be, that kind of player. So we'll see. Still question marks on the
You know what
defensive
the
line.
phrase are, Nick? The phrase for guys with all the talent in the world that it never comes out for. You've heard me say it before. It's not a new phrase. Those are the coach killers.
Mhm.
I'm going to be the guy that's going to get McTelvin Agim to play like this every week.
Yep.
I'm going to get him to be consistent. I'm going to tap into all that size, strength, and potential. He's in his third year, man.
Yep.
And he hasn't played a ton for a reason because he hasn't been, he hasn't shown the consistency yet. At what point do you say enough? I can't risk a Matt Henningsen who is out there kicking butt every single thing. In college we call them program guys. They're not the ones that have all the size and the strength, but they're the ones in the fourth quarter and in the dog days of camp and two-a-days are the ones that are pushing your team to make them better.
Yep.
For your last defensive lineman, you're making a choice. I'll take a program guy over an upside guy.
And it'd be 4 years of control versus 2 years of control. That does add up sometimes. Jacob Foster coming in, the silent one, over on Facebook. Thank you so much, Jacob. It's good to see you. Happy Monday to you. God, I think it's Monday. My days are all mixed up. We got Shiloh also coming in with a $1, holding his pupper there. Very cute picture. Good to see you, Shiloh. Thank you so much for the support. Also want to say hello to Dave Glassman's in the house. Good morning to you, Dave, with the Heart Bama X. Good morning and happy Monday, Broncos country. There we go. It is Monday. CC in the house. Morning all. Hope you all doing great. My knees are barking, but I'm feeling good. Dave Glassman in the house. Good to see you. Jeremy Bales. Good morning. Broncos Mile High Huddle ladies saying good morning, fam. 2 weeks until real football. God, it is 2 weeks. I cannot wait.
It's got to be a Thursday night game, right? Who's kicking us off on a Thursday?
It's probably the Rams, right? It's typically the Super Bowl champion.
Bills and Rams, Thursday, 8:20 NBC.
Probably what should have been the Super Bowl.
That's a pretty tasty little. So, if for most of y'all who are playing fantasy football, we're only today's almost over anyway. Once you get through Broncos for breakfast, the rest of the day is like done. So Tuesday, Wednesday, it's only 9 days. I'm gonna round down. It's like 9 days until football.
Today's going to be a long day of work, so I'm going to count it 2 weeks. Bick Mitchum coming in here saying good morning, Mile High Huddle. Good morning to you, Bick. Hope you're doing well. Falling Sloth, Howdy Broncos Country. I like how it's lowercase, uppercase, lowercase going on there with Howdy Broncos Country. Got to emphasize the Broncos. Mike Gibbons saying good morning, Nick and Scott. Glad to see KJ playing. Absolutely. We'll get into that here in a bit. Chase Wellner. Morning, fellas. Are you confident we upgraded the DL depth? I know these players got cut by other teams for a reason. I think that it's very possible. The Broncos are going to be shopping on the clearance rack for interior defensive line. I think that, we're talking about McTelvin Agim. We're talking about Matt Henningsen. If there's somebody out there that they think is a surefire upgrade on those guys, I think they're going to be heading to the checkout line with one of those defensive linemen. And, all this Henningsen Agim talk will be for naught. But are you confident the Broncos upgraded the DL depth? You're just relying on a lot of unknowns. So from last season to this season, I think it's probably about a push. Draymond should be a little bit better. DJ Jones, Shelby Harris. I think DJ Jones is an upgrade, but not as big as a lot of people expect. I think, you went from a C+ to a B. So that looks a lot better on the report card at the end of the day. But definitely still have questions on the defensive line. I think the biggest thing for the Broncos defensive line is what's around them. Hopefully the linebackers with Jewell and Griffith and the edge rushers especially are better this season, and that'll help the defensive line look better.
That was one of the points I had about Shelby Harris last year. It's like, who's next to him?
Yeah.
Draymond, if I'm in a 3-4 and I can take two, if I can handle your nose guard with one guy and I can use my guard and my tackle to double team your ends, and you're not rushing, We know that. You're not rushing anybody, and with Vaughn and Bradley Chubb out for a good bit of the season for one reason or another, I can handle your edge with a blocking running back.
Yep.
So Shelby Harris was, he was good last year, and he was the front three was undermanned. They didn't have enough help from the guys beside them.
Yep. Defense relies on everybody doing their job, not to take a page out of the Bill Belichick book. But we'll see. And you got a lot of young guys. Maybe this year, as the year goes on, Abuzarika really starts to step up. And Tabitha coming in over on Facebook with a support. Thank you so much, Tabitha. Good morning to you. We appreciate you keeping the lights on here as the season progresses. And we got Mandingo Dan coming in saying, George Payton did not draft McTelvin Agim unless the coaches are pounding the table for him. He's toast. He had I think Nathaniel Hackett really praised him in the post game talking about Agim, and
but that could be like the what do they call it, the when they come out, it's the kiss of death when the owner comes out and get the vote of confidence. That's what they call it. The public vote of confidence could be the kiss of death also.
Yeah. I mean, Agim had a good game, and he can get after the passer. There's definitely a niche role for him. It's just he's third in the pecking order of that style of defensive lineman to me when you have Draymond Jones, who is vastly underrated, maybe one of your best defensive players, honest to God. Deshaun Williams, who's obviously ahead of Agim, and then Agim. So it's you have some question. It depends on how many of that type of questionable run defense, single gapping. I don't want to put the F label on them, but finesse, more finesse style defensive lineman.
I'd be much more interested in him as an end in a 4-3.
Yeah.
Where he's taking on one blocker most of the time and not being, again, instead a 3-4 with your two edges, your edge guys are supposed to be the ones that are getting the penetration, going after the quarterback and getting the sacks. That's the glory position. 3-4 lineman is a SOB position. It's a lunch pail position, where whatever you get out of them is just, bonus as long as they're holding their point of attack. Well, he's not holding his point of attack. But as a traditional 4-3 end, it's not as nitty gritty. It is more of a finesse position. I mean, it's not as physical. You're out wider. You're out a little bit wider, and you're not taking on two guys every time.
And Antonio Jones saying he's definitely keeping Agim. Yeah, I mean,
and that's why I love there's questions. That's why I posted this one right after Mandango. He's toast. I'd keep him. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I think part of his issue is that Arkansas played him in a 3-3-5 where he was more of that end. He obviously doesn't have the body type, the explosiveness, the twitch to be like a true pass rushing 4-3 end. But he's got that other. I don't want to put another label on him, but tweener. He's a bit of a tweener out there, and I think Arkansas not putting him on the inside where he had to hand fight, learn how to take on doubles, and battle leverage a lot more probably was a big disservice to him as far as his long-term development. Not to steer this to my Iowa Hawkeyes, but they have a redshirt sophomore this year whose nickname is Hercules, and he's 6'5", 270 pounds, and they played him at interior defensive line last year, and he had 6.5 sacks, and he had to learn how to play with leverage despite being that guy, and he figured it out there. Now he's going to play edge this season. So winning that leverage battle, knowing how you have to hold up against those blocks just has not been Agim's strength. He's been put on skates far too often in his career and in preseason. So we'll see. He had a good game against the Vikings, but still definitely a bubble guy. Hello to some more people in here. Not a bubble guy. Mike Gibbons saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. Glad to see KJ playing 100%. Brandon Figueroa coming in saying Nick Benito looked good. We got Greg Smith. One day we're just going to get one of just emojis. I'm ready for it. Good morning, Broncos for breakfast.
Called your shot.
I'm so excited for it. Let's go. Let me get egg, croissant, bacon, pancakes. Oh, pancakes sound good. Waffle, milk, coffee. Scott, pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
Yeah, my guy. Good for you.
I think it's easier to have more fun with pancakes. Like I make strawberry pancakes, banana pancakes. I put in all kinds of stuff where the waffles are a little bit tougher because you put blueberries into a waffle maker, it can get bad.
Yeah. My issue.
So I like making them into the actual dough or batter, whereas waffles are post. You just put your fruit on it. So I like cooking them in it. So I probably like, but I tell you what, you make me waffles, I'm not going to turn them away and say, where the hell are my pancakes?
No, absolutely. And it was a trick question. The right answer is French toast, Scott. Come on. No.
I like French toast too.
Yeah, I just have a hard time with waffles because you get the butter consistency is a mess. I can't get it spread evenly. I don't want to have a glob of butter in one bite and then none on the other. So I'm
All
definitely
right,
more of
I'll
a
give you a
pancake
hint.
guy.
So Trader Joe's, do y'all do Trader Joe's out west? I'm sure you do.
Yes.
Trader
Yeah, yeah.
Joe's does pumpkin waffles, and I'm not all about the pumpkin stuff, but they do a pumpkin batter that you can make into waffles or pancakes. Whipped cream. You don't do the butter because there's like a stick of butter in it.
Yeah.
You don't do the butter, and you put whipped cream on it and syrup. And I'm not a huge whipped cream guy anyway, but pumpkin waffles with whipped cream. Yes, that's the way
Okay.
you want to go.
Okay, Leslie, nope. Mandingo Dan coming in here saying, "Morning, boys. Breakfast is my favorite meal." Talking about that on YouTube. So excited for the season to get underway. Let's ride. Jeremy Sean's in the house too. Good morning. I got busy and missed the open. That's okay, Jeremy. Life happens. You'll be better next time. It's Peter Middleton coming in saying, "Hey to Scott and Nick, good to see you." Facebook user, I'm gonna guess this is Ernie Mays. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Not sure who. And Antonio Jones coming in, a little bit more conversation here about the game. I think Seth Williams deserves a roster spot. Seth Williams had a good game. I think he had 5 targets and 65 yards. I looked up. I tried to look up the box score on ESPN just to have in front of me, and it says box score not available. Thanks, ESPN. How many days has it been now? But yeah, Seth Williams had a good game. I think Seth Williams. The best thing that happened for Seth Williams, though, unfortunately for the Broncos, wasn't Seth Williams standing out and playing well. It was Brandon Johnson suffering the high ankle sprain that'll probably cost him a roster spot this season. Hopefully, you can sneak him on the practice squad, maybe season-ending IR. However, when that happens, then he can't practice, can't develop. But Brandon Johnson going down definitely made a pathway for an ex-receiver. Big one for me, though. Now it's a Seth Williams versus Tyree Cleveland conversation, because I think Tyree Cleveland's been hurt, and the Broncos could have easily just moved on from him to create. They've done that multiple times when guys have gotten injured, waived, cleared waivers for so and so got injured. They've kept Tyree Cleveland around. That to me makes me think that there's some real conversation about Tyree Cleveland's value as a special teams contributor. So maybe more of a conversation here with Seth Williams versus Tyree Cleveland.
Yeah, when Dwayne Stukes comes out and says, "I want Tyree Cleveland," I got a feeling he's going to get Tyree Cleveland. Seth Williams is an NFL wide receiver, and we mentioned that last year during Nathaniel Hackett's one of his press conferences. He was talking about, I think Kendell Hinton was the other one he was talking about, but I know it was Seth Williams sticking in my mind. He's like, these guys have a chance to play in the NFL, or these guys are NFL receivers, not Denver Broncos, but. I said, and I pointed that out, Nick. I was like, that's the one that set off alarm bells for me as I read it and heard it. Was he's already making that speech? He just gave that one away a little bit. But Seth Williams he's an NFL receiver. He won't be out of work for long if he doesn't make the 53.
And my big thing with Seth Williams, he's made some big plays, but his drops have been an issue. They just every single game he's had some boneheaded drops where it's been right there, and those
lays
are
out and catches the back of the football falling down on a streak route, and then coming across the middle, right through your hands. You're like, ugh, why do people remember that one? I'm going to remember that one. So again, I'm biased towards the big body wide receivers, and Seth Williams is that big body guy. But if you're not going to be a 4-4 guy, you need to catch everything that's near you, and he hasn't.
Yep. Or be a dynamic special teams contributor. That always helps as well. Big E Bronco in the house, and good morning, Nick and Scott. Good to see you. Robert Caslow, what's up, Broncos maniacs? Good to see you, Robert. Sunny days in the house too, with the smiley face, the coffee, the thumbs up, and a lot of orange and blue hearts. God bless you. We appreciate you. We got Rob Bucksbaum. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Nick, are you in the MHH Fantasy League? I am not. I used to be way into fantasy football, but that consumed way too much of my time because I am super competitive and I do not like to do anything really half-assed. So I'm only in a couple leagues now, and I got to be honest too.
I'm only in a couple leagues,
but like not like super hard competitive. There was one year where I was like in 8 leagues, too much. I also got to be honest. I feel like the more I've covered the Broncos beat side of things and the draft specifically, the worse I've gotten in fantasy football, because fantasy football is a fantasy. It's not real football. So I'm drafting guys based on, the talent and my perception of them coming out in the draft and whatnot, rather than their situations. The wide receivers, quarterback, the running backs, offensive line. I mean, all that stuff matters a lot. So also I like defense more than offense, and fantasy football is way more offense oriented. So No, long, long walk to a small glass of water. No, I'm not on the MHH Fantasy League. If you are, Rob, I'm pulling for you this year. Consider me on the Rob Bucksbaum hype train.
Yeah, I don't play fantasy. The last time I played, I took over. It was a league I started way back in the day, like in the '90s, where you're doing box scores off the newspaper the next day, and doing those things. But I got invited when I moved back to Georgia. I got invited back in that league. I'm like, sure, I'll do it. And I took over the last place team and won the league. Won $1,000, and I'm like, okay, this is why I quit playing fantasy football, because I'm obsessive and I don't want to be worrying about everything when they play from Thursday to Monday night. I don't care who's playing Monday Night Football at 1:00 in the morning. I want to go to bed.
Yeah.
So I kind of say, you ever see Nick Saban coach a football game? He ever look happy to you? Well, he makes $8 million. So that's how I feel playing fantasy football. And for $1,000, it ain't worth it. So I etched my name on the trophy and then resigned from fantasy football again. But I enjoy talking these players, so I'll be a good source for y'all throughout the season, about some, when you have questions, this guy or this guy, and I can help. I can help with you. I can help that.
Yep. Glenn Hare coming in. Morning, fellas. Good to see you. Michael Kerr also saying, morning, Mile High Huddle. Morning to you, Michael Kerr. Good to see you. Robert Caslow saying, what about the defensive line name Williams? Talking about Deshaun Williams. Scott's been a big Deshaun Williams guy. I'll give you the floor on this one. I'm definitely more trepidatious, I guess, as Deshaun Williams being a starter on the defensive line.
And that's part of it. For me, he's an underdog. He was a late round pick. He's undersized, and I thought he was maybe the best defensive player during the preseason for the Broncos last year. But it's also becomes one of those where, oh, I really like this guy, I'm rooting for him, and then someone grabs him and is like, we're going to start. I'm like, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean I liked him that much. So again, as Nick says, he may be a better second guy in, where he's not quite a starter, but better than a reserve. So when he comes in the second team, he's really, really effective. But if he's in the first team, you lose a little bit of something there because he's not quite good enough to be a starter. So we'll see. I love, one of the things with Deshaun Williams you're not ever going to have to worry about is that effort that we talked about, that attitude out there. He's going to go out there and give everything he got every single play. And part of that is because he was an underdog. He was underdrafted. He was undersized. People have been telling him his whole career that he isn't good enough. Well, he's proven otherwise. So you like that. You like the effort and attitude that he's going to bring to the defense. But like Nick, I'd probably rather see him be the first guy off the bench in a rotation.
Yeah, and it's part of this is his style play. I just wish he had a little bit more protection with some size and length for not only Draymond Jones, giving him some more one-on-one opportunities where he's at his best. I mean, he's playing interior defensive line at 285 pounds. He's on the lighter side, but also DJ Jones. I mean, we're all, la-di-da excited to see DJ Jones in his niche and role, but let's be real, DJ Jones was really protected on that front seven for the San Francisco 49ers. They had, prior to last season, they had DeForest Buckner, top 5 interior defensive lineman. They have Eric Armstead playing edge. He's an absolute unit. He's bigger than Deshaun Williams playing the inside for the Broncos. You had Nick Bosa out there. You had Fred Warner behind him. DJ Jones, very good player, but I'm worried that we're putting more on him, on his plate in his role than he's ever even had close to for the 49ers. And what does that look like for the Broncos? The coverage, the protection of that whole unit. Curious to see how it all plays out. They're a smaller group for sure. Peter Middleton saying Williams was the undrafted free agent. I think he was as well. Deshaun Williams.
Yep. So I had in my mind, in that area where he was underdrafted. Well, not drafted, is definitely underdrafted. So thanks, Peter.
Yep. Absolutely. We thank you. And we also got Jeremy coming in and said, I think I'd go Virgil in case Washington gets too valuable as a receiver. Virgil only came in the third quarter this last week. And you think if he was really battling for a top roster spot, he would be higher up than that. So I think Virgil is definitely destined for the practice squad. I've liked a lot. He's made a lot of big plays. I don't remember somebody in here has been a big Virgil fan saying like Virgil's faster and better than KJ Hamler. Pump the brakes there. But Virgil, it seems like Broncos country enjoys him more than the Broncos coaching staff, given the opportunities and when the opportunities have arisen for him in preseason so far. But I'm really hoping he makes it on the practice squad.
Yeah. Washington's your return guy. That's where he's going to get the most of his touches. And then you'll have him in some gadget plays, some bubble screens or whatnot, or you see him on a reverse, but he's not going to be an every down receiver unless unless there's an injury, and that starts coming up that way. So, I think you'd feel pretty good about Washington, hopefully not being a top tier receiver for your team. You want those guys to be Sutton. You want them to be Judy. You want them to be Hamler. You want them to be Okwuegbunam, Dulcich, Javante, Melvin, as far as first options in your offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And saying hello to some more people here before we get into our main topic here. BX Bronco Jedi, good morning, fellas. Good morning to you. Chris Jenkins in the house. Morning, Broncos family. Nick and Scott, good to see you. We also got, I saw Chris Jenkins saying my version of fantasy football is playing Madden. I feel like I moved out here and all my Madden time has been replaced with dog walks and hikes. So a little healthier. Lost a lot of weight with that too. So definitely some good time. Maybe I should bring out the old Xbox though for this winter because it gets pretty dreary here.
I bought Madden last year. I was like, I haven't been in the NFL in a while. I need to play Madden just to get familiar with the names again. I didn't play a freaking game.
Yeah, it's busy, man. You get busy. I can't come home after school, finish your homework, and play 3 hours of Madden like I used to. Michael Kerr coming in saying good.
He was that's why he's a doctor and I was in sports because I didn't do my homework or go to school. I'd show up for test days and get A's and get zeros on everything else and stay home and play. Well, I played hockey. I played some Madden, but I played hockey mostly.
Modern Warfare 2, that was my game. Michael Kerr coming in saying, good to see you. Hinton can do a flea flicker or whatever, but no returns. Looked lost. Yeah, Hinton did look a little bit lost. He's maybe more of a roster bubble guy than we think. Maybe we'll be talking about him tomorrow morning, not making the team. We'll see. Elliot D saying, good morning. Good to see you, Elliot. And I think we're all caught up on everybody, unless there's any super chats. But appreciate everyone. Oh, we got E. Corbin saying, time to jump on that Broncos. Let's go. And I also wanted to say hello. He's had a few comments in here. Lance Johnson didn't say morning to us. Rude. No, just kidding, Lance. Saying Cleveland has more tools in his Swiss Army knife. Talking about the wide receiver position, maybe Cleveland making a roster spot. I mean, just things line up. We've heard Stooks talk about how good of a returner, or special teams player, a four-way special teams player. As
core special teams player was the word, the phrase he used. I want him to be a core special teams player.
And that's the issue with Cleveland is that he has a lot of tools. He's just not very nuanced as a wide receiver. Doesn't have any of that polish. He's just an athlete out there, which I don't know if you guys remember, this is a different position here, but it was a similar thing with David Bruton, who was a core special teams player for the Broncos for a long time before he suffered that neck injury. Really never could get the safety position locked down because I don't think he had that much wiggle and agility. But as far as, pin your ears back, run down the field and make a tackle, height, weight, speed kind of guy, that's what he could do. And that's what you get from Cleveland as well. So I think he's definitely got a chance. And again, make the point again, he was injured, the throat injury. It would have been easy for the Broncos to waive him injury reason and then make another spot on the roster for somebody that far down the offensive wide receiver pecking order. They didn't. That says something to me, to keep him around and not even bring in a guy when he's not available and not probably contributing to the offense. I think they really want to keep him.
So do you think keeping 7 active is easy enough? Because if you do, you're probably going to lose Seth Williams, Darius Shepard, Jalen Virgil.
Yep.
And I think you can keep 7. And if you keep 6, then you're making a decision between like well, Kendall Hinton is, I agree with you. I think he is on the bubble. So
I think Kendall Hinton and Seth Williams, there's a debate to be had between those two right now.
Yeah. So you could keep 6 and including Brandon Johnson if you lose Kendall Hinton.
Brandon Johnson, I think, is cooked with his high ankle sprain. I don't think there's any way they keep him around. He's not that much of a difference maker to wait, 6 weeks, 8 weeks for a high ankle sprain. I mean, that could cost him the season. Yeah. So I would consider him off the board, unfortunately, because otherwise he was very, very much on the roster for me.
Right. So again, your depth is starting to look still good, but not quite where the decisions are starting to make themselves to a certain extent, which happens in football. Again, we've talked about this earlier, Nick. It's like, is this, how dangerous is the sport when you're afraid to play it? Well, we don't want to play any of these guys because we don't want them to get hurt. You mean the game itself is too dangerous to play? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Yep. And what also interesting, Andrew Lampy coming in with a new picture there over on Facebook. Andrew, you got to let me know if it's Lampy or Lamp. Is that E silent? Who knows? You probably know. But he says, Happy Monday. Hope everyone's had a wonderful day and week. My week was awesome. Like I said earlier to start the show, did about a 30-mile backpacking trip on the north side of the Wonderland Trail. If you're not sure what the Wonderland Trail is, it is a 93-mile trail that goes all the way around Mount Rainier. And I've done 2 sections of it now, the north side and the east side. Maybe next year I'll do the west side. The south side is kind of it's in a canyon. It's a little
Do
bit.
people do that all at once? Like take a
Yep.
month off and do it?
They do it in about 10 days.
Yeah, I figure you should be able to. Yeah, 10 miles a day. Figure you can average 3 miles an hour.
The issue is the elevation gain. I think it's like I've gained almost 7,000 elevation and I only did about 30 miles. So I think it's like almost 20 something, 30 something thousand elevation
even
gain.
2 miles an hour if you hike 8 hours a day, 16 miles a day. Yeah, you could pull it off in a week if you were insane.
Yeah, just carrying too much weight.
Yeah.
This is the issue.
Yeah, because you got to have the supplies with you to pull that off.
Yep.
Unless you're a hell
Luckily,
of
you
a
can
fisherman.
drop off. Oh, that's a big issue with Rainier. There's not very many lakes, and a lot of the water sources are from glaciers, and there's a bunch of silt. So if you get water from there, you'll clog your filter, and then you'll be really screwed. So can't do that. Luckily, you can drop off food at one of the every single corner of the park has a ranger station where you can drop off like the next supply of food if you have good logistics. So I don't have to carry 50 pounds of food with you.
Thank you, Andrew Lampy.
Lampy, boom. Great to see you. Nelson coming in here saying, love from Virginia Tech. Go Hokies. Hokies. Beamer ball, man. Used to love enjoying watching some Beamer ball. Left his 8 a.m. chem lab. Good for you, man. In the sciences. Love that. Loving the Broncos now. Loving you. And Peter saying, could the Broncos keep 8 wide receivers? I think that's extremely doubtful, given how niche roles the tight end position seems to be. And just can't imagine them keeping 8. But
I don't see any reason to. Do
Yeah.
I need to keep all of these guys? Tyree Cleveland, Kendall Hinton, Seth Williams, Darius Shepard, Brandon Johnson, Jalen Virgil. Do I need to keep all of them to keep one? That's 10. So I'd only cut 2 of those guys. Kendall Hinton, for whatever you think of him, does he need a roster spot?
Yeah. And if Tim Patrick had been healthy, maybe we're having more of a conversation here, but alas, I don't think it's happening. We also got Mandango Dan. I got to get into a little bit of nuance here on this one, saying with as many receivers as we have had go down, I'd love to see Johnson go on IR so we can bring him back midseason if someone goes down. If you are doing that, he has to first be on the 53. If you put him on the IR before the 53-man roster, it's season-ending IR. He's done. So you're losing someone else in order to have the chance to bring Brandon Johnson back if you are putting him on IR where he can return.
And I love the fact that we have an emotional connection to these guys. I've said a zillion times, you end up rooting for the names on the back of the jerseys as much as the front of the jerseys. But 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 receivers in the NFL are a dime a dozen. There's nothing overly special about these guys, or we wouldn't be talking about them being cut, frankly.
Yep, absolutely. Well, talking about a little bit special here, KJ Hamler made his return on football in football this week against the Minnesota Vikings. And man, I got back late last night. I watched the first half of the Broncos game. Then my eyes were screaming at me, so I went to bed and woke up early this morning, still screaming. My eyes are still tired. And watched the rest of the game. KJ Hamler, I thought though, really stood out on the offense. I probably missed some parts of the offense because I was so laser focused on KJ Hamler because, as I mentioned in our show last Thursday, I think he's the X factor on this Broncos team this season because you need explosive plays. Russell Wilson's hunting for explosive pass plays down the field, and the KJ Hamler speed makes it that if you're playing single high coverage against this Broncos defense, he is going to run to space on the slot fades and make things hard. So KJ Hamler looked really good. I thought Rippon on a few plays missed him. The interception was vastly underthrown. KJ Hamler, that should have been a touchdown. KJ Hamler returns look good. He did not look hobbled at all. He looked fast. I know it was against the Vikings backup defense, but speed is speed. Some of those guys out there are still fast on those opposing defenses, more like the processing and size and stuff. He looked like a different kind of guy out there, different caliber athlete. So extremely happy about KJ Hamler's return. Also heard that Hackett, sorry, Scott, I know I'm rambling here. I also heard that Hackett had to go to Hamler to pull him out. Hamler still wanted to keep going. So really excited to see that. Man, if Hamler's healthy this season, you guys are going to absolutely love him because the Broncos have not had a dynamic speed, just explosive guy like that in a long time. I mean, he's
Hamler.
twitchy. Yeah, I mean, God, yeah, since Hamler.
And I liked he looked comfortable.
Mhm.
Going through this, there's a mental aspect of recovering from an injury like that he had for better or for worse, he had a leg up on, no pun intended, just because he's been through this before. There's a mental
Yeah.
block that I have to learn how to trust this knee. And you could see which one it was. He is wearing a fairly thick knee brace on. But he was tough enough. Didn't he have a personal foul go against him too? Someone hit him late or hit him high. Wasn't that him?
I
That someone
think
got a
so.
linebacker came in and got him high, and it was a 15-yard penalty. So he was good. He was really good. I think the early returns you've got to be very pleased about.
Yeah. No, it was a great time, and I'm really excited to see him, man. He just moves differently, and the fact that he was out there looking comfortable is like last year we were watching the early season, like Cortland Sutton, he had a little bit of a gimp to him, almost like a little bit of a hitch in some of his steps coming off that knee. Did not see that in Hamler. And I know he's wearing a brace as well as gosh, who was it? Somebody pointed out in one of our recent shows that he is going to be wearing a brace this season,
Mhm.
at least
Yeah, it
early
was
on.
you could see it. I mean, I was like,
Yep.
I went to look for it then because it was completely covered with his pants.
Yep.
I was like, "Yeah, yeah, there it is. That's
Yep.
not like a sleeve. That's a brace right now."
Yeah. Really excited about KJ Hamler. Scott, and we got Michaela coming in here first. Yes, he
Mhm.
was hit super hard and jumped up right away. Yeah, good to
Yep.
see him. Get that, shake that off there. It's a little different when you get actually hit versus the practice reps. So
Yeah,
excited to
because
see
I'm
that.
pretty sure that was flagged. So
Yeah.
he had an unnecessary roughness go against him and then popped right back up. So that probably, probably got his heart going a little bit, had to
Hmm.
calm down, get the butterflies, but that was good for him and got 2 weeks, another 2 weeks to recover and get ready.
Yep.
And again, we're hemming and hawing over the back end of these receivers, but you really don't want to see too much of them.
Yeah.
Again, there's a lot of teams that feel this way about the receiver depth.
Yep.
6 foot guys that run 4.4s. There's a million of them.
Yep.
So you can probably if you really like a couple of these guys, you can probably stash them on the practice squad. But if you also see a big defensive lineman become available,
Yeah.
you don't have to keep all these receivers because I can move guys in and out and off of my roster a lot easier at wide receiver because there's so many of them.
Yeah. Totally. And before we get off this KJ Hamler conversation, what are your expectations for him this year? And is there any chance that he could emerge as the number one receiver, the number two receiver, or is he squarely the number three? Because I think
I,
given Russell Wilson's style of play, and right now I need to see it with Judy to believe it. It's just some of the
Mhm.
not off the field, but the above the neck kind of stuff with him sometimes is like, do you get it? So I think Hamler gets it more. So I think there's a chance that Hamler ends up maybe not volume wise better than Judy, but like touchdowns, explosiveness, impact better than Judy this season. But we'll see.
For broken plays and broken coverages, you don't necessarily need to have that speed. So I don't know that Russ is dropping back and in a 7-step drop and hitting the long ball. That's his game, or is
Yeah.
it? The play is broken down and he's looking deep first. I'm a greedy passer, and as I roll out, break, contain, I'm looking deep first. I don't necessarily need speed to do that because the safeties start looking in, they start creeping in, and you can get behind them a little bit. That I still think it's Sutton. And then I'm going to, yeah, I want to see it too, but I can say that about KJ Hamler also.
Yeah.
Judy's going to have a year. It
I
was
hope
nice
so.
to see here. They asked Justin Simmons on the sideline, said, other than number 3, who's a player to watch this year? Justin Simmons, who is a leader. If he's not the leader, he's a leader on this team, certainly a leader on defense. He said Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is young. He's immature. He's a little bit older. He's 23. He's ready to go. This is a time. I'm buying low on Jerry Jeudy this year.
Man, I hope so. I was a big Jerry Jeudy fan coming out of the draft, and it's like the thing that you say, where if somebody doesn't live up to your expectations when you were high on
I
them,
know.
you
You're
turn on
harder
them.
on him than anybody. I
Yep.
know.
So that's where I'm at. And Jeremy, coming in, good question here. What do you guys expect with the backup quarterback? I think it's going to be Johnson. I think it's the safer play here. I think Rippon closed the gap more than I ever thought was possible this season. But I think in the end, they're going to go with Johnson. And I think it's going to be as simple as, if it's close, they might go to number 3 and saying, who do you want? I think number 3 is closer with Johnson. I think Johnson was brought in partially at number 3's recommendation. Russell Wilson, guys, for those at home not understanding number 3, who's that? So I think it'll be Johnson. But hats off to Rippon. I hope they can keep him around on the practice squad because he's definitely a good cerebral quarterback, and he just has like a calmness to him. It's just, man, if he's a little bit more athletic, a little bit bigger, a little bit more arm talent, he'd be somebody that maybe has a chance in this league as a starter, but he's just not enough in those aspects.
No, and I'm going to kind of reiterate what Nick said and give some examples. There was some talk last night on the Mile High Huddle podcast about, Rippon not looking great and his accuracy was off a little bit. You know when his accuracy faltered the most was when he had to throw the ball downfield. He just doesn't have the arm.
Yeah.
If he had to, if he couldn't, he was dumping things underneath, pretty accurate there, no problem. But anytime he had to put something on the ball, his accuracy faltered. He just doesn't have the arm strength to be an NFL quarterback.
Yep.
It happens. It happens. That's why, he wasn't a high pick. He's been stashed away. So my backup, the guy I want coming in the game, if I need an emergency starter, it would be Josh Johnson. Would somebody come in for Brett Rippon if you don't keep him on the 53 and you had to elevate him last year? Again, my question last year was, what's the plan for Brett Rippon? Because it's not to play him. That wasn't the plan last year. He's got a better chance this year because the number 2 spot isn't decided. But I just think Josh Johnson's your backup.
Yeah. Seems that way. We'll see how it plays out, though. And we got Mandango Dan saying Simmons said Judy is the guy he expects to blow up this year. Hope so. That'd be great. Some weight there coming from Simmons, but I'm very much I'll believe it when I see it for somebody who has not shown it yet at the NFL level. Showing it at Bama with, arguably just as good wide receivers around you and Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith with a NFL quarterback throwing you the football. You have some opportunities there. He's great, but we need to see it. And there's just so much more physicality at the NFL game, and that's been an issue for Judy as well. So we'll see. Jeremy's saying, we got a question coming in here from, Jeremy's saying, I like both quarterbacks, but Johnson is very short-term. They're both short-term. They're both 1-year contracts.
My answer, I was waiting for you to take it. And then my answer, Nick, was, and Rippon's not long-term, unless it's a long-term clipboard holder. And frankly, that's kind of what they all are. Your backup quarterbacks. You don't want your backup quarterback to have to play. There's so much invested in the first team guy. There's hardly anything put into the second team guy. And for the most part, any of these teams that you consider contenders, if their number 1 goes down, they are no longer contenders.
Yep.
What's plan B? So again, we can talk about this, but in the end, it doesn't really matter. Neither one of them are good enough to be a 17-game playoff starter.
Yep. 100%. It's will be interesting to see how it plays out for that backup spot, but you hope that we don't see them at all, because if they go down if number 3 goes down, as number 3 says, you're effed. Or excuse me, Tom Moore would say you're effed, and if you don't practice, effed. David Carmelo coming in, $4.99 super. Thank you so much, David. Hope you're doing well. I don't know if you DM'd me this weekend, but I was without service from Thursday to Sunday, pretty much. So apologize. I'm not ghosting you. Says, how big of a downgrade from Brandon Johnson to Seth Williams / Kendall Hinton, and should the Broncos IR/designated return Johnson? I don't think for this year it's a big loss. Brandon Johnson was definitely standing out. I'm excited to see him, but he's one of those guys that if you were going to be leaning on Brandon Johnson at all this season, it means something went really wrong on top of the guys above him. As far as the downgrade, it's probably somewhat of a downgrade, but not enough to really move massive needles. And as far as the IR designated return, we talked about that a little earlier. If you are going to IR him with designated return, he has to be on the 53 at first. Maybe you're fine doing that because you weren't planning to keep some of these guys anyway, and you wanted to bring in somebody from a release or a waiver wire kind of move. So you're going to create a spot anyway. Maybe you do that. But I don't know. I don't think he's probably a big enough player, especially being an undrafted free agent, that you are losing players on your own roster to make room for him to return this season.
All those guys are under $1 million. I mean, I know that's not necessarily the be all end all when you're talking about what do you do with them, but they're all dirt cheap. Again, the players like this on the back end of the roster, they're not hard to replace. So, do you IRM or do you come? And I don't know the rules on this, but if you come to an injury settlement when you waive him, can you re-sign him at any given time? I don't know. It wouldn't cost that much to pay out his contract this year. He's $800,000.
Mm-hmm.
I could pay him off in order to open a spot. And as you get healthy, I could bring him back.
Yeah.
Or I could, because I don't know if he's injury designation, or can I cut him while he's injured? Is that against the rules too? That I'm not as familiar with every single nuance of all of the player personnel moves on this.
Yeah.
But again, he's not. How big of a downgrade is it from Brandon Johnson to Seth Williams and Kendall Hinton? I don't think it's that much of a downgrade. Has Brandon Johnson proven anything in this league to make you think, oh yeah, we got to have this guy, or move on?
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen enough yet to be weighing on him, but we'll see. We had somebody want to say hello to coming in here. Brad D coming in saying good morning, all better late than never. Absolutely. Also, Case Wallner, a long-term backup quarterback oxymoron. I think Broncos country, they really like to look for patterns and things that, like a warm blanket that make them feel good. All fan bases are like this, but specifically the backup quarterback, people hearken it to Gary Kubiak, long-term backup quarterback for John Elway. Oh, we could have another Gary Kubiak, John Elway situation with Russell Wilson and Brett Rippon. The backup quarterback, I'm glad we're discussing that as being the battle rather than the starters and going nowhere fast like we have been for years.
Yeah, it could happen. You need somebody in camp that's going to do things and run your offense and during practices. But again, long-term clipboard holder, because, as Jeremy asked here, does Rippon help more in the QB room and on the side that I'm observing? Maybe. Again, he's not an NFL starting caliber quarterback. If that's what you're worried about, does he help the team? Not on the field. Not as a quarterback. Is there other ways to keep him around? Again, we've talked about him entering the coaching. Is he on the Kellen Moore path, and how long will it be? Is this a year? Okay, we cut you. We want you to come join as an offensive passing assistant or whatever. Does it happen next year? It's gonna happen.
Yeah, you hope for him. I mean, he seems like a good guy and whatnot, just, not enough kind of guy as well. And then before we get out of here, Scott, because we're already at 51 minutes, talked a lot of KJ Hamler. Wanted to do that today. But we got Malachi coming in. Was Browning playing late in this? Why was Browning playing late in the second quarter? I guess they still want him to get the reps out there, the mental reps, because he's making the position change. And he was out after that, but Browning had a great game. Nick Benito had a great game. Somebody who I feel like has made some... He's a splashy player. This is a guy that we haven't talked about much on here, but Delarian Turner-Yell, I thought had a phenomenal game standing out there. I really want to see at some point this season, he's going to make a special teams hit that is going to be ooh from the crowd. But man, he's a fun player.
And Malachi, I think it may have just been situational. I was just, I'm looking at PFF and I sorted by total snaps, and he was 17th of 24 players in total snaps. So it may have just been situational. It could have been something as simple as, hey, you're in. Oh crap, where's my helmet? Browning, get in there. You don't know. It wasn't like he was playing, the top guys. Mauga played 55 snaps. Delarian Turner-Yell played 52, and Baron Browning only played 22. So they didn't overcook him for sure. It could have just been situational in the first half.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That makes sense. We'll see though. We got John Sandoval saying, I feel like they should cut Ojemudia. And what's going on with Christopher Allen? Love your 20 podcasts a day. I can only watch 2 or 3 of them. JK, you guys are awesome. Well, as long as you're hanging out with Scott and I, you're going to have a good time. But as far as cutting Ojemudia, I don't think that's happening. I thought Damari Mathis didn't have a great game. Your depth at cornerback is concerning. We talked a lot about defensive line to start the show. Cornerback depth is probably my number 2 for this defense right now, outside of talking about depth. The starters wise, it's more concerned about Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory given their availability, but I digress. Christopher Allen, he was put on the IR. He's out for the year. We'll see him again next year. But we'll see what happens. But thank you so much, John.
Stay away from football for a year, kid, and get healthy.
Yep.
He's speaking of injury prone. He's battled it. He's battled it.
Yep, absolutely. Miguel Santasteven coming in here saying, "Sup, fellas, great show." Thank you so much, Miguel. We appreciate you rocking the shades there. Good to see you, and have a good one. And before we get on out of here, Scott, starting to wrap up. Other takeaways from the game, I thought Browning stood out. Nick Benito, back-to-back sacks to close the game. Delarian Turner-Yell. There was somebody on the offensive side of the ball, though, that you mentioned to start the show that I didn't notice because I was all eyes on KJ Hamler when I could be. But you pretty emphatic about this.
I did, and let me see where I'm interested to see where he graded out, because he started at right guard before moving to center.
And who is this?
That was Luke Wattenberg.
Yes.
And I can't find him on here. Am I making this up completely? So he played 63 snaps. He played as many as anybody. So he pretty much played every snap. But I thought he was really good in the first half at right guard. They had Graham Glasgow at center, interesting, and they had Wattenberg at right guard. And I thought Wattenberg was really good at guard. It's like he didn't have to think about it anymore. Center position is a cerebral position. I got to make all the checks. I got to see all this. I'd rather have Glasgow there, an old wily veteran. And then over to right guard is a guy who could just be like, all right, seed man, hit man. And when he was able to do that, I thought he was getting a very good push off the line. I liked him getting to the second level. I thought him and Glasgow worked better together in that type of form at center and guard, with Glasgow at center and Luke Wattenberg at guard, than when Wattenberg went over to center. So Wattenberg's got a spot on this team. He's versatile enough. He can play all three positions. And I thought he looked really good on the offensive line. I was very pleased with what I saw.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. I thought he had a good one as well. And I said, like, oh, so Jeremy coming in here saying, I think Turner Yell made the team. Yeah, I think he made the team with some of those hits. You want some guys who can hit like that out there, especially on the defensive line, especially with Kareem Jackson, getting so many veteran days. Delarian Turner Yell should be a special teams contributor, which, again, everyone drank Nick talking special teams. Brad D coming in is also saying, smash the like button for Nick and Scott. Solid work. Thanks so much, Brad. I guess the final takeaways here for me on this Broncos game. I thought that neither quarterback looked great. Really liked what I saw from Benito and Baron Browning, and we talked a lot of Ajim to start the game. This is one that's kind of sweep under the rug. We're saving it for the end of the conversation here, but Jacob Bobenmeyer, whoever it is, the special teams gaff from the long snapper spot, running the ball into the back of the end zone, causing what would have been a great punt, turning it into a touchback, and then also some errant snaps as well. Broncos have brought in, I think, 4 long snappers in camp so far to test out. They're not going to keep Bobenmeyer. Don't even probably have to get his name right. Sorry, guys. Sorry, buddy. That's really rude. But probably not long for this roster, given his struggles and everything around that.
Yeah, I think you're going to be very pleased with the special teams first unit. You're not running third string guys out there, third string special teams guys out there, the guys that are 75 to 80 on the roster who will not be invited back as a practice squad or claimed on other teams. Running special teams, you're going to be very pleased because you saw some good things. And I think, what was the Minnesota punter's name? Wright, wearing big 66 out there. I think he enjoyed punting at Mile High. He hit some into the atmosphere out there. So, but I think we're going to be very pleased overall with the upgrade in special teams play this year.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Should be a great year. I'm really excited about that. Kayleon coming in very late here. Yo, fellas. Kayleon, we're just getting out of here, but we appreciate you. Broncos preseason wrapped up. We are 2 weeks from the day for the Broncos coming here. I'm going to host them at my place. Actually, not yet. We're still unpacking. It's still a mess. Been too much fun backpacking and hiking this summer to totally unpack the house. But Broncos coming to Seattle in 2 weeks from now. If anybody's be at the game, make sure you hit me up on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Nick Kendell MHH, and also follow Scott on Twitter at Scott Kennedy. And of course, follow us, our main, the podcast Twitter account at BFB_pod, BFB Broncos for breakfast, easy to remember. And of course, the mothership account at Mile High Huddle. If you guys haven't done so yet, join our Facebook account at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And of course, please subscribe, like, and share. Over on YouTube, click that bell icon so that way you know when we go live. Scott and I are pretty consistent with our time getting on here, sometimes a couple minutes late, especially on Mondays because we're still wrapping up the Falcons game and haven't had a chance to really catch up yet. But no, absolutely follow us on Twitter. And thank you guys so much for a great show. Scott, what's the rest of your day looking like? Anything on your mind?
Yeah, got to get some work done, and then, practices and stuff, and then just start preparing for tomorrow. It's going to be a busy day with the cuts, and then an even busier night for listening to George Payton talk. It's like that's when the work also begins, because you spend the next, by 10 a.m. you have to put in a claim on somebody on Wednesday morning if you want to try and keep them. So you've got to do a lot of work and bring in the staff and say, hey, is this the guy we want to claim, and come to a consensus decision, because for every person, you just went through all that work to get to the 53, and if you claim somebody, someone else has got to go. So it's going to be a busy time for sure over the next 36 hours or so.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone
now that if you go into Wednesday morning. So we'll be here for all of it. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And also wanted to give a shout out to Patrick again for the Lion Coffee Company out there in Hawaii. I took my backcountry stove has a French press attachment with it, so I brought some Lion coffee in the backcountry and enjoying it a couple of mornings ago at Mystic Lake
Wow.
with a lenticular cloud forming around Rainier there. So having a good time and appreciating Patrick for the coffee for sure. That was a beautiful morning. Great trip. Gotta love Mount Rainier. It's a lot of fun out
Wow,
here,
that's a
Pacific
great
Northwest.
shot. Now, it's like, why do you go out there and put all that work? That's why, right there.
Yep.
So, for those of you listening, we are at the 1 hour mark on YouTube. Come and check out the shot if you can on Mile High Huddle. It's worth a quick look.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. Everyone choose kindness and choose compassion. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. Until then, go Broncos.